And good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Ask the Theologian. I'm Randy White. On this Wednesday, we're glad you're here. Wednesday. You know what we do on Wednesday. We study the Gospel of 1 John, the book of 1 John, the epistle of 1 John. And tonight, we're going to be in some interesting subject. Let's see, we start with verse 18. Little children, it is the last time, as you have heard that Antichrist shall come, and there are now many Antichrists, whereby we know that it is the last time. And so we will look at that beginning tonight, or tonight, starting at about 6:15-ish. We're not real precise on Wednesday nights, not like the rest of the time where we're just, you know, lickety-split right there, like the railroad, because we've got live studio audience today. We've got Ed and Nancy Trask. Ed worked for the railroad for many years, kept him lickety-split right on time, right, Ed? And we have Nancy, excuse me, we have Ed and Nancy, and we have Tammy Wilkes from not Cassville anymore. Bonnet. Monette, like the artist. Right. Monette. Except that's Monet. Monette, Missouri. But if Monet had lived in Missouri, he would go by Monette. And glad to have this studio audience here today. And tonight, hey, look at there. There's the placemat for tonight. This is the only one that exists. This is the proof copy. And this is our British audience right here. With we've got Russell, and we've got Alex and Terry, and we've got Mario and his wife, and Stephen and Peter and Terry. Oh, all these, right? We're going to use those on our table tonight as we have bangers and mash to celebrate you all. Thanks for being with us here today. We are delighted that you are here. A couple more announcements that I should say. In studying for our series on the Magi, the mysterious Magi, I ran across a book by Francis W. Upham. I don't know if I had heard of the Reverend Upham, if that's even how you pronounce it, before. I possibly had. He wrote a few things in the 1800s into the early 1900s. And he had a book called The Wise Men, excuse me. And I read it, and I thought, this is really good stuff. He's done a lot of research. And I just decided, hey, let's get this into print again. And so here we have it, The Wise Men, who they were and how they came to Jerusalem, from Francis W. Upham. It will be printed probably today and go on to the website today. And so you will be able to get those in time for Christmas. And if you are interested in a deeper study on our series that we've had, The Mysterious Magi, I think you'll like this book here. The book is, I haven't even looked here. It's about 150 pages, less than 150 pages. And I think you'll enjoy it. Really, he has done some great study. You know, I think of this guy. He was a Methodist minister in New York City. Now, today, if a Methodist minister in New York City wrote a book, I probably would say, yeah, that won't be worth anything. But back in the day, the Methodists were pretty good at deep Bible study and at getting it right. Now, he's not a dispensationalist by any means, but he's writing on a subject that it doesn't affect it. And he certainly did believe and trust in the Word of God. And so you might be interested in that. Francis W. Upham, The Wise Men. It is a book that's on public domain, but we're getting it into print, totally retypeset it and everything. Got it ready for you to go, and we're excited about that. Okay, let's get into your biblical, theological, and worldview questions today. And Nathan, you can get me going there on YouTube after I take this first question. And the first question comes from Paul in King, Wisconsin. Good to see you today. Oh, that reminds me. We'll get into your question in a minute, Paul. Yesterday, when we had the 80th anniversary of the attack on Pearl Harbor, I mentioned the sleeping giant comment, and I didn't know exactly who said it. Arthur from Iowa sent in and gave me the details. It was Admiral Isoroku I'll get it right here. Yamamoto. Let's call him Admiral Yamamoto, who said to the Emperor of Japan, "You have woke the sleeping giant." And indeed, that's the way it happened. Thanks, Arthur, for giving me the info I needed there. Now, let's get back to Paul and King. The following is from Dispensational Truth by Clarence Larkin. You know what, Tammy? In the fellowship hall, on a table right as you go in, there's a box of books, and in it is a brown book, Clarence Larkin's Dispensational Truth, about so big. Bring it, I'll use it as show and tell. I'm glad to have a live studio audience here today. Now, the following is from Dispensational Truth by Clarence Larkin. I would like to get your opinion on it. If there were human beings on the original and pre-Adamite earth, they were doubtless involved in Satan's fall and destroyed. In fact, the demons are believed by many to be disembodied spirits of the inhabitants of the pre-Adamite earth. Let's not miss that. The demons are believed, today's demons, believed by many to be the disembodied spirits of the inhabitants of the pre-Adamite earth. And their efforts to re-embody themselves in human beings, as in the day of Christ, is looked upon as evidence that they once possessed bodies similar to human bodies. Now, I lost my place. Let's see, where am I? Naturally, the question arises, if the inhabitants of the pre-Adamite earth were human beings like ourselves and were destroyed when the pre-Adamite earth was thrown into chaotic form, where are the fossil remains? Why have we not discovered them in the soil of the rocks of the earth? The answer is that their bodies may have been consumed by fire, as will be the case the rebellious hosts of Gog and Magog at the end of the millennium, and their escaping spirits became the demons referred to above. It is clear that the demons are not Satan's angels, for they are free, while the demons are confined in the bottomless pit and are only given liberty as it suits God's purpose, Revelation 9:1-21. Neither are they fallen angels of 2 Peter 2:4 and Jude 6-7, for they are reserved in chains under darkness until the judgment of that great day. The demons then are a class by themselves, and for aught we shall never be. Let's see. I want to read that statement, that last statement correctly here. The demons then are in a class by themselves, and for aught we shall never. We know. And for aught we know. Here I'm trying to get into the older English. The demons that are in a class by themselves are in a class by themselves, and for aught we know shall never be different. What we do know in reference to them is that the time is coming in which they suffer torment, according to Matthew 8:29. Now, it comes from this book right here, Dispensational Truth. Many of you probably seen it with the white cover on it. And let me talk about the book here. First of all, Dispensational Truth, God's Purpose and Plan of the Ages by Clarence Larkin. The book has these fascinating charts in it. Clarence Larkin was a draftsman. And so he was very good at charts. And being a draftsman, he was precise. And draftsmen and engineers and accountants and investigators, those things that look at the tiniest detail, do make very good theologians. And they always become dispensational theologians because that's where the precision of the text leads to. And so just chart after chart, just all really good things here. Here's one on the 6 days of creation. Now, probably, if I were to turn back just a little bit, here's one that shows 3 earths, if you see. And what we've got here is the original earth, the chaotic earth, the present earth. And this is in the neighborhood of what this particular comment was talking about. Now, I'm going to have to admit that Paul in King, Wisconsin has done better than I. I just look at the pictures. And I have not read a lot of the text. Every now and then I'll go and read a piece, but I haven't gone to a lot of the text. And so I just get the pictures. And he goes, here's Daniel's 70th week. It's the old Roman Empire. It's lots of good stuff that he's got here. Here's Satan, the god of this age, in the place of Satan. So all this good stuff. Now, he does hold to a gap theory. Him, Bullinger, Schofield, all of those in that day held to the gap theory. With that, he has this, what I think is a rather interesting idea, that maybe the demons are not the fallen angels. He gives, as Paul gave us in the quote there, he gives some scriptural evidence that the fallen angels are reserved unto judgment. They are what's the word? Kept in the confined in the bottomless pit. They're not running around. And of course, in the days of Jesus, they were running around, obviously, as we see through several of the stories. So could it be that, for aught we know, the demons are a class unto themselves? They are not fallen angels. They are the pre-Adamite race. They were seeking to have bodies. Now, I would say with Larkin, and definitely with Larkin and with Bullinger, and to some degree with Schofield as well, though I wouldn't put Schofield quite in the same context, in the same category as I would Larkin and Bullinger. I think that those two were top of the class, and Schofield was the B student that knew how to make money. You see, and I say that with kindness. I don't mean, shame on him for making money. I mean, the A students are so busy studying, they never get it into print and sell it. So Schofield wasn't quite the scholar as Bullinger and Larkin. So therefore, I would say to this comment that even though it's, shall we say, weird, it's weird because we've never heard it before. But we here question the assumptions, and questioning the assumptions, we're good investigators, and we say, it's not totally bad thinking. There's not anything that just immediately you say, no, that cannot be because of such and such. So I think that that both the gap theory and then that theory. Now, you would have to accept the gap theory first. And as I've mentioned a number of times, I don't hold to the gap theory. I've mentioned a couple of the things that are my biggest hang-ups with the gap theory. And one is to have the devil existing when God is looking down saying, whoa, this is very good. So I think it does have its problems. But I would also say that the gap theory holds more textual credibility than we often give it. So if we could accept the gap theory, then we would have this second theory. Could the pre-Adamite race be the demons seeking once again to be embodied? And as Larkin has said, and Paul has given us in the comment, if Genesis 6 connects, then we do look at them and say, oh, these people seem to want to have a body. As a matter of fact, even when Jesus cast out of the Gerasene demoniac, the demons beg to go into the pigs. They need to possess something. Why do they have this tremendous need for possession, and especially for possession of a body? We talk about, in American culture, I guess, we talk about, a haunted house or something like that. But there's nothing in the scripture of a haunted place. There's possessed bodies. So do they have a need? They don't care what place they're in. They want to be in some sort of physical body. Is there that need? Now, I do hold a position, and I still do, that the demons are not possessing today. So has the Lord just limited them from that in this time, or what's up to that? A lot of stuff we would have to put together. It would make a fascinating weekend conference sometime. We'll think about that. Thanks, Paul, and I appreciate your good comment there, and let's now make our way, as we do almost every day, down to San Antonio and hear a word from the Padre of old San Antonio. And our Padre today, he's the question that Manny brings. Says, hi, Randy. Right dividers teaching that salvation is only through Paul and that 1 Corinthians 15, 1 through 4 is the gospel that saves today. I assume we're to say there, is this an accurate thing that salvation is only through Paul? Well, I would say that let's kind of tweak that a little bit. We're not saved by Paul, obviously, and no right divider would say that. But I do think that if you were to take the Pauline literature out of your Bible, take the epistles of Paul out of the Bible, you could not have the grace salvation message that we have today. So salvation by grace through faith, not of works, is something that is only found in Paul. Now, some would argue, of course, well, what about John 3:16? And certainly you've got that faith aspect of John 3:16, and there are two ways to argue that. One is that certainly even life under the law required faith. But a lot of the Gospel of John really is only belief. And so you can certainly look at that too and say, well, it was written post-Paul, and so it does have some Pauline influence, and I think you can definitely stand behind this argument here, that everything Pauline in the Gospel of John was written by the Gospel writer, not by, say, the words of Jesus. I think my position is John 3:16 should not be red letter, that it's that's commentary by the author. So then you could say the reason the Gospel of John is so different is because he knows Paul. He knows Pauline truth. Therefore, I think that you could very legitimately say, and even defend it, that a person it would be impossible for them to present a totally grace-based salvation without the Pauline epistles. And that without the Pauline epistles, there would be a salvation, but it would be looking forward to the kingdom. It would be becoming Jewish, being obedient to the law. Even as we've looked at First John, as we've looked at 1st and 2nd Peter now, they very much are calling to the law and to obedience to the law. They very much have a works-based kind of thing. So we could even leave the general epistles, as they're sometimes called, or the Hebraic epistles, leave them in there, and we're not going to find Pauline theology in those. Those are written to the Jews. So salvation by grace through faith only through Paul, as long as you mean only through Pauline literature and the Pauline pattern. Yeah, there's no other pattern. The other pattern, as we talked about yesterday, to be in Christ, like Andronicus and Junia, they were in Christ by obedience to the law. They were fellow apostles. They were under the apostleship. And so that would be the only thing that we would have. It'd be the only thing we could go by. Now, a lot of non-right dividers would disagree with that, and they're probably throwing things right now at their computer screen, saying, "Get rid of that bald-headed heretic who's saying you can't find it. I mean, I see it in Ezekiel, the soul that sinneth it shall die." And they take things and they take their Pauline understanding and they read those into the scripture. But if they read them, shall we say, precisely like our friend Clarence Larkin did, they would find that those are prophecies for the future. They're prophecies for the kingdom. The kingdom hasn't come, and those things would not work at all. Whoever will call upon the name of the Lord will not be ashamed is quoted with one word changed. It's quoted by Paul in Romans chapter 10. But even all of that you take it in its context, and it is looking for the day of the kingdom when whosoever will call upon the name of the Lord will not be ashamed. So it's not about the salvation we have. So I think you could say that. Now, 1 Corinthians 15, 1 through 4, being the gospel that saves today, I am not as keen as some right dividers on always going to 1 Corinthians chapter 15, 1 through 4. First of all, I think when you get into 1 Corinthians chapter 15, the topic is the resurrection. The resurrection is not for us. We're talking the resurrection of the Jewish people in 1 Corinthians chapter 15. The only resurrection that's spoken of for us is 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, is it verse 17, I believe, that talks about, we shall not prevent them that have proceeded, but, we will rise, we will be caught up, we'll meet them in the air. And in the resurrection talk specifically in the Bible, as you have in 1 Corinthians 15, he's the first fruits of the resurrection. That's always about Israel, or it's about Jesus Christ if it's specific, resurrection singular, let's say. It's about Jesus Christ. If it's resurrection plural, it's about the final resurrection. And in the Old Testament, it puts the two together, the first and the second resurrection together. In the New Testament, when it talks about the resurrection, I think it's talking about Israel. I think 1 Corinthians 15 is about Israel. Now, is it true in 1 Corinthians 15, as we see here, make that just a little bit larger for you, that you've got, the gospel which you received, you stand, you're saved in this gospel, and it's based upon how Christ died for our sins according to the scriptures, that he was buried, that he rose again the third day according to the scriptures. Yes, absolutely. You might even be able to argue there that Paul is saying that you all are saved here, but you Corinthians are Jews, and there's an aspect of here that I want to talk about as well. And so you could even put 1 Corinthians 15, 1 through 4 on the grace side. But I wouldn't go there because they keep reading. They keep reading into 5, 6, 7, and they eventually get into 50 and 51 and 52. And you were changed in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye. And I think that answers the question, the dilemma, what should we do? Because flesh and blood cannot inherit the kingdom. It's a kingdom passage. So even though the truth is our salvation requires and is based upon, and in order to share the gospel requires that we share the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ, which we can find in 1 Corinthians 15, 1 through 4, I wouldn't start there. Now, the other reason that I wouldn't start there, I wouldn't say, this is right here, the gospel. Reason number one is they keep reading chapter 15, and they get into kingdom stuff, and that confuses them. Reason number two is that I think one of the mistakes that right dividers make is they redo the mistakes that evangelicalism has made. So, for example, evangelicalism says the Great Commission is Matthew 28, 19, and 20. And right division says, no, that's not the Great Commission. The Great Commission is 2 Corinthians 5, 20 or whatever. They want to, we are ambassadors for Christ. And they swap. And I say, we made up the thing about Great Commission in the first place. There isn't a Great Commission. There's lots of things that the Lord had the apostles do and that Paul wants the church to do. And, to make this is the Great Commission that we must all do. I think it's a fool's errand, if you will. So we just swap the errors. Now, in this regard, what has happened? The gospel in a nutshell, John 3:16. That's the evangelical position. And we come and say, no, that's not the gospel in a nutshell. 1 Corinthians 15, 1 through 4 is the gospel in a nutshell. And I say, the gospel's not in a nutshell. We don't have to replace one for the other. Let's just say, let's look for the gospel. Let's take it one. Let's take the Bible chronologically. Let's understand the whole picture. Let's not try to nutshell it or to Great Commission it or to simplify it, because we get into the errors of simplification. Deconstructionism, that where we make a bumper sticker theology that doesn't belong there. So I wouldn't have a problem if a person came and taught, shared the gospel from 1 Corinthians 15, 1 through 4. I would just say, I'm not sure that's as full as we need it to be. Thanks for the question from down in San Antonio. I appreciate it. Let's go down to South Carolina and see Donald, who's not fishing today. I don't know if I caught this. You might have put, so 2 days ago, Donald was fishing during Ask the Theologian. And I don't know if you caught fish. Did you catch fish, Donald? This is what I want to know. But the question, it's a worldview question today. What are your thoughts concerning the current saber rattling from our government with Russia? There is that. I've watched this much. Let me tell you, first of all, I know that President Biden is having a video conference with Putin. And of course, Biden's trying to look tough, even though he's been up in Washington for 50 years and he hasn't been tough yet, but he likes to talk tough, and pretend like he's tough. We're tough with the Chinese. Oh, yes, yes, yes. Oh, thank you for that money. Yes, we're tough with the Chinese. So he's all talk. Putin can be all talk. Putin's a showman. He knows, he knows both his own people, and he pretty much knows world people very well. So he knows how to play the crowd. And I think he's okay with the world being scared of him, which is a much better position than you being scared of the world. So he kind of wants to make the world scared of him. And so, of course, now he's stationed all these troops on the Ukrainian border. Now, is it all show, or will he do something? This is always the challenge in trying to predict the future, is that governments do a lot of show. So it's very difficult to know, is this a preparation for something, or is this strengthening your position at the negotiating table? And that's all it ever is, and he doesn't plan to ever move forward with it and go into Ukraine and whatnot. Now, I think if I did have designs to take over the world, this would be a perfect time to do it. I would be saying, strike while the iron's hot. Right now is the time. You've got every country in the world, I think, is divided right now. And that means they don't come together with a unified force. And, you take the U.S. military, and they're trying to figure out genders and bathrooms and all that, rather than warfare. And I know that the true soldiers out there think this is ridiculous, but the fake generals up at the top, traitor generals up at the top, they're trying to get the girls in the boys' bathrooms and boys in the girls' bathrooms and all this because, somebody might have their feelings hurt. So different than 80 years ago. And I think you've kind of got that all around the world. Do you really have a nation in the world that is unified other than maybe Russia and China? And Russia and China are probably unified because their people are a little more used to, jumping when the premier says jump. So you take the part of the world that should mitigate against dictators and wannabe dictators, and they can't figure out which way is up. So this is a good time. So I mentioned this the other day. We're at the brink of World War III. The question is, will we cross that brink? And I think we've been at the brink a number of times on World War III and didn't cross it, like the Bay of Pigs, for example. Sometimes we got so close. I suppose a few times in the I don't know, during the Cold War, in the Reagan years, probably we bumped it right up close. But it was a lot of saber rattling, as you say. It was a lot of showmanship. It was a lot of and doing that with a reason, to say I want to strengthen my position right here. So in carrying that out, what is it today? Only thing is, I'll have to tell you tomorrow. Could there be that this is some kind of a specific real threat? I think he could do it if he wanted to, and this would be the time to do it if he wanted to. We don't have the leadership in Washington to fight against it, so why not? And I think you've got the same situation you had again 80 years ago, that you've got China. On one hand, they'd go into Thailand, Ukraine, Russia would go into Ukraine, and then Iran might go up against Israel, or Israel up against Iran, and all of, it could be an all-out warfare all around the world. And then for that matter, you could get a lot of Western nations revolting. And honestly, I don't know why we haven't had revolution in a lot of Western nations already. So they could take the opportunity. Who knows through all of that? Debbie says we're probably already at war. It just looks different than we expected. Yeah, and I think Paul has a good word there, too. The Biden regime is concerned over the Ukrainian border, but not the U.S. border. Go figure. Yeah. I agree with that. 20-pound catfish. Good for you, Donald. That's like, you can have a fish fry now, can't you? Fort Mill, South Carolina. Let's make our way. Did I say North Carolina earlier? I meant South. I always get those mixed up. Sorry about that. It's kind of like, where I live, New Mexico, they always mix it up with Mexico. It's a whole different country. Well, I realize South Carolina is a different state than North Carolina. Sorry about the Carolinas always just get mixed up, but New Mexico gets mixed up with Mexico too. So it's all good. Thanks for that worldview question. I appreciate that. And now let's go for the rifleman question of the day. How's that sound? We'll make our way over to Russell in Kent, who's got his picture right here. And he's wearing his dispensational shirt. I need to get the bigger picture of that because we had to cut off some of the writing to put it on there. But it says, I think if I go over here, y'all stay tuned for a moment. If I make our way to Worshipify on my computer and pop that out and close that so you don't have the double talk, and right click, thank you. And oh, there we go. I was able to bring it up, ladies and gentlemen. His hyper-dispensationalist shirt, not to be confused with lethargic, complicit, imperturbable, unshakable, unexcitable, hypo-dispensationalist. I love the shirt, Russell. And thanks for your question. By the way, hypo, underneath, dispensational. You're a little too slow on the draw in dispensationalism, hypo-dispensationalism. Nathan and I were talking on the way down, and then we got here and didn't look it up. I used the word hypochondriac, and I said, I wonder what chondria is, or chondriac. Like it's somebody doesn't have enough chondria if they're chondriac, but I don't know what it is. So I'm going to have to look that up. Your hypo-dispensationalist reminded me, but thanks for being a hyper-dispensationalist, not to be confused with lethargic, complicit, imperturbable, unshakable, unexcitable, hypo-dispensationalist. Russell. God bless. Here's the question coming up. But Paul says Putin dreams of recreating the Tsarist empire. I think you're probably right. And do you know that Tsar comes from the word Caesar? And there's this attempt to recreate the Roman Empire, which of course plays into some prophetic stuff as well there. But Russell's question today has to do with with Psalm chapter 5, verse 6. Can you please explain this verse, especially the word leasing? Leasing. Now, I have a question. Is that a typo, or do you say specially? Specially. Now, we would say especially. But you're in England, and it sounds kind of English to say, especially the word leasing. And especially is a word, but is that the way you actually say it and spell it? This is what I don't think we would ever do that. My live studio audience, would we say specially? We would always say especially in writing, correct? Yes. It's especially in writing, we would say especially. It's unanimous. So, Russell, we're wanting to know: did you say specially on purpose? Let's see. Psalm 5, chapter 6. Thou shalt destroy them that speak leasing. The Lord will abhor the bloody and deceitful man. It kind of reminds me of something that's somewhat irrelevant, but I follow this Facebook group. Let's see if I can find the one I was looking for here. It talks about it talks about things for rent or lease. That's what caused me to think about it. And on these, I was looking for a specific one, and I don't see it. I wanted to show it to you. I could go to most any of these, but I don't want to because sometimes the language is not so nice. But the in this particular group, if you say, "Hey, I've got a house. It's 17 bedrooms and 25 baths, 10,000 square feet, all utilities paid, furnished, $1,200 a month," they will come on and say, capitalist pigs. Capitalist pigs say, "How dare you charge $1,200? Don't you know that we don't make enough to pay $1,200 in rent?" It doesn't matter what it is, they're always complaining about the rent cost because they're a bunch of socialists and they think you should just give us housing. This is a human right. Give it to us. This is why we have a supply crisis right now, because I'm not going to go to work and produce something. Okay, I got off a little bit. You're asking about leasing. Thou shalt destroy them that speak leasing. As you said, as I read that, I'm thinking, if the people in the Taos rental group find out about this, they're gonna start quoting this verse. Thou shalt destroy them that speak leasing. Just give it to us. Hand it over. Okay, what in the world is that leasing here? Let's back up just a little bit on the verse. On the passage. I don't have my psalm book right here to see exactly what category of psalm this is, but let's see it. Give ear to my words, O Lord. Consider my meditation. Hearken unto the voice of my cry, my King and my God. Unto thee will I pray. I would suspect in these first two verses, this is a psalm of the remnant. It's the remnant of Israel crying out to God. Help us, save us in the midst of the tribulation. Verse 3, my voice shalt thou hear in the morning, O Lord. I will direct, in the morning I will direct my prayer unto thee, and will look up, for thou art a God that hath, thou art not a God that hath pleasure in wickedness, neither shall evil dwell with thee. The foolish shall not stand in thy sight. Thou hatest all workers of iniquity. Thou shalt destroy them that speak leasing. The Lord will abhor the bloody and deceitful man. Now, it looks to me like the nation of Israel is looking forward to the judgment of God, the presence of God, and God dealing with man in verse 6. Thou shalt destroy them that speak leasing. But what is this leasing? Now, let's look over first of all to Young's, thou destroyest those speaking lies. Okay, now why would speaking lies? You would say, if it means speaking lies, why doesn't it say speaking lies? But let's look at that and see if we can figure this out. Them that speak leasing. Let's go to the Strong's word here and just open up Strong's lexicon. And lie 23 times, lying twice, leasing twice, deceitful once, false once. Now, again, leasing in the midst of all these lies. Let's take the Strong's word again, and let's pull this up in the scripture. And here you see in 4 and 5. So we had it in 4:2. How long will ye love vanity and seek after leasing? Once again. So Psalm 5:6, speak leasing. And Psalm 4, seek leasing. And Psalm 5, speak leasing. Neither one seem to be a good thing. But why aren't they lies? What's the difference here? Now, let's take this word and let's find it in exactly this form in the scripture. And, okay, we still see lies and leasing. So it doesn't have to do with the form. So then I think, again, we would look at that and say, I don't understand leasing and lies. I wouldn't use the word leasing. I'd use the word leasing if I were going to, get some property to lease for a while. So let's go here to the Oxford English Dictionary and see leasing just a little bit. And let's see, we want, this is a noun. Let's check in Psalm 4, noun. Okay, so we're going to skip the verbs. Leasing. Ah, looky there. Looky. Leasing, obsolete or archaic, meaning lying or falsehood. So, Russell, there's a special reason why it's used, because it meant lie. 1611, over on your side of the pond, leasing was used. It's more, as you see, a Scottish or Northern, and of course you are in the Southeast, and that's probably why you did not know. Plus, it's obsolete and archaic. Give some reasons or some quotes here. Here's one. Psalm 5:6. Thou shalt destroy them that speak leasing in the Bible. Here's one. Milton. And so take again either your manifest leasing or manifest ignorance. Oh, maybe we should make a T-shirt. Take your manifest leasing or your manifest ignorance. Joe Biden. Or here's one for Pryor. As folks prone to leasing say things at first because they're pleasing. That's kind of good. Folks prone to leasing say things because they're pleasing. It's almost poetry. Author Scott, Tales of the Crusaders. Let's see. Satan is strong with you and prompts thee to leasing. So, there you saw the kind of the process that I would go through. I did go through right here. When I get a word that I can't figure out, like here, in Psalm 4, or we were looking specifically at Psalm 5:6, destroy them that speak leasing. I'm thinking, well, I don't think he's talking about rental of property. And so one of the first things I do is I do go over to Young's Literal, and I'll just see if there's a difference, because Young's Literal was pretty solid at making a literal translation. If I see there's a difference between Young's and King James, I don't just take Young's word for it. Then I say, okay, how did we get there? Why did they choose the word leasing? And it looks like because leasing was a valid word to use then, and not so much today. Now, we could go further. If I wanted to argue for the King James, because some people would immediately say, see here, there's a reason we need to get rid of the King James. It's archaic. You can't understand it. We don't speak like that anymore. Well, I might look into it and say, was there a meaning of leasing that was more precise than the meaning of lying? Because certainly many times they use lying. Why did they use leasing in these two? Now, we'd have to do some further study and see if there's is there in the English language, was there in 1611, was there a difference between, for example, today we might say especially or specially, kind of means the same thing, except one of them is more royal, or a lie and a fib. Okay, they're both a lie, we would agree, they're both a lie. But a fib, I don't know, maybe a fib has a good purpose behind it. We don't want to tell you about your, birthday party coming up or whatever. So we fib a little bit. We have these words that mean some difference. So is there something in the meaning that has some difference? Maybe leasing is worse than lying here. I don't know. I might want to look up that. But I think what I would find is that the King James had a very good reason to only in these two places put leasing instead of lying. Now, what was that good reason? I don't know. Sometimes their reasons were just because it comes better off the tongue, and King James was made to be read even more, made to be spoken even more than to be read. But anyway, interesting to go through that. Thanks for the question, and look forward to having you for dinner tonight in our bangers and mash night. Got people driven in from Colorado, from Missouri, to be here at Bangers and Mash night. Now, the only thing I feel bad about is that we're going to put our plate right on top of you. And probably, Russell, where you are, you're going to get some banger gravy right there. But I didn't know what else to do. I'm sorry. We appreciate that. And Charles says, since you don't accept the gap theory, when did Satan and a third of the angels rebel from God? I put their rebellion. Now, the gap theory would change this. If I adopted the gap theory, I'd have to change this. But I currently put their rebellion after the seventh day of creation, the seventh day of rest. On the sixth day, he looks and says, it's very good. There's no Satan here. Everything is perfect. Somewhere between there and Genesis chapter 3. We're really not told how long that is. It's long enough that Adam's able to name the animals and all that kind of stuff. I would think that takes more than half an hour. It's long enough for him to realize everybody else has got a partner, but I don't have a partner. So how long is that? Men are kind of slow thinkers, still slow to put things together. So, it could be 100 years. I don't know. Until you got all this done and you figured this out. And I think it's during that time. And as a matter of fact, you've got the creation of woman during that time. So there's plenty of time to put it in there. And now this doesn't totally argue it, but Job tells us that the angels looked on during creation. Now, could it have been that only the non-fallen angels look on? Yeah, I suppose you could argue that from Job there. Let's go up to our friend Imogene in Wisconsin, who has a question on Judges chapter 11. I think God had specifically forbidden human sacrifices, but I don't have a specific reference. I think you're right. I'll go with it. In Judges 11, Jephthah made a foolish vow promising a sacrifice if God gave him the victory in battle. Judges 11:30 through 31. I always appreciate when people give me the text, by the way. Number one, did God give the victory? Number two, Imogene says, did God accept the human sacrifice of Jephthah's daughter? Number three, if God did accept the human sacrifice of Jephthah's daughter, how do we explain the contradiction? I kind of wanted to get this into 30 Amazing Bible Stories You May Not Know, mainly because this is one of those perplexing stories. But in Judges 11, verse 30, Jephthah made a vow unto the Lord and said, if thou shalt without fail deliver the children of Ammon into my hands, then it shall be that whatsoever cometh forth from the doors of my house to meet me, when I return in peace from the children of Ammon, shall surely be the Lord's, whatever shall surely be the Lord's, and I will offer it up for a burnt offering. Now, I wonder, as I'm looking at this, let's look at this word right here, whatsoever cometh forth. Is that worded in such a way that you wouldn't find it in other places to talk about the sacrifice? Because I don't think in the Old Testament we would find, whosoever be referred to as a sacrifice. Did he word it in such a loose way that it actually included his daughter? Because I think that if you were to, if we were giving sacrifices, and we were to say whatsoever comes through the door, we would, what would be an animal, and it could get as close to say our puppy dog, or something like that. But it could also be the sheep and the goats and all that, especially if we lived out on the farm, like Missouri. So is there a deal? Now there is a translator's note on whatsoever. Let's see what it says. That which cometh forth. Okay, which shall come forth. This is, it's in the masculine, but I don't think we can tell that much from that in Hebrew. Obviously, his daughter is in the feminine. I'm not sure that tells us too much, though, grammatically. That which comes forth. Is that supposed to include a human? Obviously, he later thought it did. Let's take the word and see how that is used. Okay, the earth brought forth grass. Genesis 1, Genesis 2, a river went forth. Okay, Cain went forth. So here is a person with that word. Go forth, bring forth, that's speaking to humans. Noah went forth. Okay, so there's a few times in there in which that particular word is used of a person. Obviously, that's what Jephthah had in mind because that's what he ended up doing. Did he use that wrong? It would be interesting to go through Torah, those first 5 books of the Bible, and see, is it ever used of a sacrifice? What we're trying to figure out is, was Jephthah just so can I say hell-bent on this program? Was he so hell-bent towards victory that that he was willing to sacrifice anything? Because you got to assume when I go home, who's going to come forth? I don't know if he was hoping for his wife. But you got to assume, he's gonna think some kind of person. Now, I say that when I come home, the dog comes out first, and has quite the welcome. even if I've only been gone 10 minutes. This is quite the welcome celebration that goes on with my dog. In fact, Hallie, who was here yesterday, she, if you bring up Riley the dog, her comment will be, Riley, crazy. And she is. But you would kind of have to think that he's thinking a person here. So is he just so twisted in his thinking that he's really willing to sacrifice his family? And maybe the issue is, hey, it turns out to be your favorite daughter. Be careful what you say. And could the whole story be included in there to show us Jephthah? There are things more important than, you be careful what you're sacrificing. And do you have to go to God and bargain with him like that? If you do this, then I'll do that and carry this out. And the whole story is given to show us, if I can put it this way, what a fool Jephthah was from the beginning. When he could have, I suppose, like others, we could probably find the examples of maybe a Moses or a Joshua saying, God, I need your help. Please come through and provide victory today, without giving this risky promise, bargain that is given in there and through that. And so I think here, number one, the question, did God give the victory? We would have to read the whole context to look. Let's just read verses 32 and 33. Jephthah passed over into the children of Ammon to fight against them, and the Lord delivered them into his hands. Okay, let's just take that for its word. The Lord delivered them into his hands. So, yes, did God give them the victory? Yes, he did. Did God accept the human sacrifice? Let's go down. Imogene gives me verse 39. And he said, go, and he sent her away for 2 months, and she went to be with her companion and bewailed her virginity up in the mountains. And verse 39, it came to pass at the end of the 2 months that she returned to his father, and who did with her according as his vow, which he had vowed, and she knew no man, and it was a custom in Israel, that the daughters of Israel went yearly to lament the daughter of Jephthah to Gileadite, Jephthah the Gileadite, for 4 days a year. I must say here, by the way, let me put in that there is a Jewish form of interpretation here that says his daughter never died. That we read death into there, but that she never died. Now, I think the plain sense of the passage is she was sacrificed. Did God accept it? I don't think so. This is prior to the time of, well, no, you've got the Levites, and you've got the tabernacle, and you've got the way to, would the Levites even accept the sacrifice? That's hard for me to imagine, because the Levites, remember Nadab and Abihu, the sons of Aaron, who put a strange fire on the altar? It's a little different than what we've got here, but I would think that the Levites, when the sacrifice came, would say, no, we're not doing it. Even it being Jephthah, I think they would reject that. So it's a little bit my speculation here. Did God accept the sacrifice? I would say no. I would say if she was sacrificed, he probably had to build his own altar and do it on his own. I think we could build enough strength into the Levitical priesthood at this time to say that would be true. God wouldn't even after instructing, he wouldn't even let Abraham give Isaac, and stopped him. So I think it would be very hard to assume that God accepted this sacrifice. Thank you for your good word there. I appreciate that. Oh, that's interesting. Unrelated. Debbie says, we noticed even the China influence on toys for our great-grandsons for Christmas. Everything has an Oriental look to it and Chinese letters. Very obvious attempt to influence children. I do think there's a concerted effort, and pretty successful on the part of China, to get American society to be pro-Chinese. You see this in TikTok and other things, regarded in the way they promote. You see that they own the NBA basically right now, and that you cannot even speak a bad word against China if you're in the NBA, and they own Hollywood. Many of the movie scripts, I think the script writers send them off to the premiere there. What's his name? Omicron. And get his approval. He does the editing and then sends it back, says, okay, now you can make this American movie. Can't have any anti-China. And they do this because of the money, because China's got, what, a billion and a half people, and they like to go to the movies. And so that's a big audience. A lot of that Chinese influence. Deb says, could it have been a sacrifice of not being married? There is the possibility of that, and certainly that would have been almost nigh unto death for a Jewish person. And there is that Jewish interpretation. If we were to pull out one of the Jewish commentaries, I think we would find that. Thanks for that. So that's a good point. Talking about specially, Donald is saying, in the South we do, but we change a lot of words, and that's in the South. Don't you just leave off the first half of every word in order to make it go together, and it comes into one sentence? And those of us who don't live in the South have to have an interpreter to say, what is Donald saying? It is a possibility. The term chondria, Deb says, is a Greek term that means cartilage or breastbone. However, the term hypochondriac has a completely different meaning. Hypochondriac, a person who is abnormally anxious about their health to the point where they suspect they have a serious condition based upon a few minor symptoms. The etymology of hypochondria, organs of the upper abdomen behind the ribs, including the liver and the gallbladder. Okay, so hypochondria, a long time ago, even in the Old Testament, I love you with all my guts. The place of life was right here. So you get down, you're saying, hey, you're here below the rib cage. I'm dying. I'm not going to make it. Hypochondriac. That's interesting. And that tells me that you got to be careful with the etymological fallacy as well. Webster's Unabridged Dictionary, 1913. Leasing, from the French, lease, loose, false, deceitful. The act of lying. This was in 1913. Falsehood, a lie. I was trying to make a joke, and I can't remember the president in 1930. Woodrow Wilson, that's what I was trying to come up with. False, a lie, Woodrow Wilson. That's what it says right there in the Webster's. It doesn't say that, but... so it hasn't been all that long, 1913. Ed remembers. In 1913. William Aliso Viejo had a question I was supposed to take from William yesterday. My apologies there. What's your thoughts on the current status of roles, the churches, of roles and churches regarding the missionaries? Due to COVID, I've noticed that missionary efforts have been hampered compared to the past. They have. A lot of missionaries either staying home, or that is home on the U.S. field rather than going, or deciding not to go back, or they're on the field now and they're coming back because they don't know, am I going to get stuck here? Or they don't want to take a vaccine, and now maybe they're overseas and they say, okay, well, I can't, what if I can't get back home without having the vaccine? And so it really has hampered it. I think that a missionary, just like any other human being, has to put their health and their family as the priority. Nobody else is going to take care of their health and their family, and so the missionary has to take that and determine what to do about it. And obviously, it very much differs from one country to the next. Probably it's easier for them if they're in one of the third world countries where they can get ivermectin over the counter. And those are the societies that, strangely enough, now have a little more freedom of movement and freedom of travel to them than, if you're trying to be a missionary right now in Austria or in Germany or in one of those places, almost good luck to you. I don't know that it's going to happen. So missionaries may have to figure out how to do their work in a different way. For me, for example, I wouldn't get the vaccine in order to go be a missionary. But there are some ways in which I could figure out, okay, maybe I learn the language and I do the program in Swahili or whatever it is. Or we find ways to get the material into the right language and we distribute it there. In most places of the world, and this is not exclusively true, but in most places of the world, there are some of the indigenous people that if they had the right tools in their hand, they could take the ball and run with it. And that would honestly be much cheaper. And the world is a smaller place today because of technology, so there's a lot of different ways to do it. But I do think in general, let me say that I think that a real live missionary in the flesh on the field is the best way to do missions. And finding ways to do that, I think maybe one of the reasons that the powers that be, the devil and George Soros, go about some of these things is to keep them to keep missions from spreading, keep churches. As one of the first casualties that came is churches emptied out, and most of them have never filled up again. They're back and they're meeting and whatnot, but not to the degree that they were. Very few churches have carried that out. And notice Russell got the mug the whole time, but we'll charge you extra for that, Russell. I think that I think there's a sad hit upon missions and missionaries, and I've talked to several of them who are on the field, unvaccinated, and they're kind of concerned. What am I going to do? How do I deal with this? And trying to figure that out. Just like a lot of people in the United States in their jobs through there. What's the status of the Tour Me app? I'm going to find out. I was wondering that just the other day. And that's through our friend Boaz. We will check on that. It was to be coming out, and then last I heard there was a little delay with the App Store, and I gotta figure that out. Thanks for that question. I appreciate it. Okay, I think we got it done, and we're 9 minutes over time anyway, so it is time to stop. But watch Dispensational Publishing. Maybe even today, this book will come up, The Wise Men. And it was written in, I don't know, let me see if a date is here. There we go, yeah. By Hunt and Eaton, Cincinnati, and New York, and Cranston and Kurtz in Cincinnati, 1873. Oh, Nelson and Phillips, okay. 1873. So, and we did not, the only thing we edited somewhat was in 1873, spelling was a lot more loose than it is today. The grammar Nazis have not been loosed upon the world, and today there's only one way to spell a word. So in some of those we changed the spelling. Other than that, didn't change the grammar, didn't change the use of commas. They used a lot more commas than we use today now, and put it together. But let's just look at the table of contents there. I'm going to change this page before it goes out, by the way, so yours will look a little different. But who were the wise men? The meaning of the East, the character and religion of the Persians. I included some of that in the sermon on Sunday. The Magi, the Persians, the Chaldeans, the Hebrews. Gotta fix that right there, don't we? The Hebrews, Daniel and the Magi, the hope of the Messiah in Syria and the East, Kepler's discovery, very fascinating there, the astrological element in the narrative, the inspiration of St. Matthew, a summary, the relation of the Persian and the Hebrew religions, the East and the Far East. There is the book, it'll be coming out. It won't be all that expensive, I don't know, $200 or $400. And that, again, will be available maybe as early as today and will ship, I think, this week, probably by Friday, maybe Monday at the latest on the shipping to get them printed and bound and all ready to go. But that's The Wise Men by Francis W. Upham. I think you'll enjoy the book. If you like study, you don't mind a little bit of archaic language, it's not bad. It's very readable. It's not one of these that you say, well, you just gotta, change the words on that because I can't even figure out what he's saying. It is not that at all. So we're excited about that. Nancy is here to volunteer in the book room, and your book will likely be trimmed to Perfection by Nancy Trask from Pueblo, West Colorado, our volunteer here for a couple days, her and Ed and Tammy. Appreciate all of them and all of you, and always delight to have each one of you, and we look forward to seeing you tonight, 6:15-ish probably, for our John Bible study. Thanks for being here. This has been Ask the Theologian, and I look forward to seeing you all tonight or the rest of the week. God bless.